right. Okay. Let the magic begin.
Well, good afternoon, and thank you for joining us on another episode of this. Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us on another episode of the Sunday Spin. My name is Vinny G. As always, the Sunday Spin is brought to you by our fine sponsors. That's Grooves Records in San Francisco, Kevin Chanel leading the troops there, and What's Left Records in Colorado Springs for all your vinyl needs. As always, I'm joined by my partners here. First, I'm going to introduce to my left, my man. He's the host of Greno's Groove Yard every Monday afternoon on KCOS. Greno, it was great seeing you last week. How are you this afternoon?
I'm doing great. Yeah. Thanks for asking. And it's good to be back.
Right. And before I get too much further, thanks again for the fabulous birthday present.
Absolutely. Glad you're digging it, man.
Yeah, I just need a coffee table to put it on, and then I'm all set, right?
Absolutely.
So, Greno, why don't you introduce the bottom quadrant of our foursome this afternoon?
Oh, man. So we got Nikki, always holding it down for us, of the Wabash Cannons, our premier punk rock front person in the region. And yeah, we're just so happy to have Nikki on board with us. And man, I am super excited to introduce my cousin, my friend, my musical comrade, and family for sure, Skip Grasso. Skip, how are you, buddy?
I'm doing good today. Thanks for having me on again. Great to see y'all.
Cool. Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for joining us. And Skip's on Eastern time, so he's back in Baltimore, right, Skip?
Yes, I live in a little neighborhood in Baltimore called Hamden, which is, if to get it geographically correct, I'm near Johns Hopkins, a little west of that, and a little north of Camden Yards by about say 7 miles. So that puts us, dead center of the city. It's a little eclectic neighborhood that when we moved here, it was a lot of artists, and you would hear bands rehearsing and, behind us and up the street. So musicians lived in here, and now we're like the old timers, we're the gray hairs.
Exactly.
And someone else is rocking out,
Totally.
Well, Skip, we want to congratulate you on your new release.
Thank you.
I was able to listen to it this weekend, courtesy of Bandcamp. It's called Becoming. 8 tracks on it, correct, Skip?
Yes, there's 8 tracks. That's correct.
It's really enjoyable listening.
It's all original tunes. Yeah.
It's a fabulous effort, my man.
Thank you.
So
I had a lot of help.
Well, walk us through that process, because one thing I was really interested in, Skip, is I saw that you actually recorded in my old neck of the woods last year in New Jersey over the summer.
That's correct. Yeah, it's coming up on almost a year.
Is that correct?
Yeah, Trading Eights is a studio in Teaneck, I think it is, or is it Paramus, New Jersey. Then we mixed in Teaneck. So this is an interesting story. I'm just going to tell you. I had done a broadcast for my first album during COVID, and I got a call later that night from the person, Jack Frisch, who had done the album cover, and he was like, man, we got to get you playing with some dudes I know in New York. And I sort of said, hey man, that's just too good to be true. Sell me a bridge while you're at it. I'm just into playing music in Baltimore, and over a year we got to be closer and closer. His mother died, and him and my wife would go out to dinner and would visit, and he would want to get out of New York, so he would come and visit us. And just over the year, he kept going, no, really, I can put you with really great people. And so in the preceding following period, I sort of got won over to do the recording, and we started going through. I have a lot of material to record, but it's kind of pretty intense to, like, you know, the risk. There's a risk of recording at every second, and we kind of weeded out the people that might be supportive of the music, and he came down to a guy named Harvey S., who is a major bass player in the jazz world. And then also he added a name that came up was the drummer Billy Drummond, that he had done some work with before. Both these guys he had worked with before. So those guys, between them, have definitely recorded 400 albums apiece. I mean, they're just major studio cats in the jazz scene. And so we took a lot of advice from Harvey S. in particular, and Billy had worked at that particular studio quite a bit. You know, it's almost as if those guys are there every week recording at that particular studio. And little known to me, that's like the engineer there, are Grammy Award winning. All the people that Harvey ended up recommending were, you know, really top of the line people and top of the line to work with. So we thought about a lot of places that we could go to, and I said to Jack, you know, anything Harvey says, we should take the advice. You know, it was just, you know, he's going to help us. And so we decided to record there. And so about, you know, 3 months before the gig, we reached out and sent the music out to those guys. And originally another piano player was supposed to be in there, but he had an injury. And about a month before, Anthony Pochetti's our fourth, he came on piano. He's with the Jazz Ambassadors, which is a major group within the military for performing jazz. They're stationed at Fort Meade, and I was able to get him on that date. And so I had sent the music out to Harvey and Billy, and a huge bridge for me was when Harvey, I had sent out the music, and I get like a text or a phone call, I can't remember which, and he's like, the music is really good. I'm very excited. So you send the music out to cats of this level, and you're like, oh my God, that could be a total train wreck. Because he could have come, I mean, to be frank with you, he could have come back and said, nope, it's not there, don't want to do it. Let's start playing Misty. You know, let's do Misty. Let's not do your original music. But he was very supportive, and Billy was very supportive of doing that music and really excited to play the original music, which in what I do is not like a money maker, but for me, it's the only way to continue on as a musician and get better being a musician is to do original music. I mean, I have just played standards for years, and I love to do that, but the people that I love, Pat Metheny, Mike Stern, Miles Davis, everybody, they're writing their own music, you know, and so that's part of like sort of where I wanted to go on that, with the risk that, you know, not as many people are going to hear it. The jazz industrial complex is conservative. You know, you're hoeing a tough road when you do the original things. So so back to your original thing, Harvey recommended trading eights, and then when the mixing came, Harvey had worked with a guy. Now I'm spacing out. Dave is his first name. It'll come to me, but he's in TNAC, and he did the mastering. They do a lot of mastering together. Man, I'm bummed I can't remember his name, but it's on the album. You can tell him if you look at the album who the cat was. So he was another recommendation from Harvey. And then Harvey really stepped in and helped me at every aspect that he could. We got a really good working relationship. And he was like, what do you want? Like, what do you think about the sequencing? Can I give you a recommendation for sequencing? And, you know, like he just wanted to be really involved, which was really cool, you know? So it's a funny story about Harvey S. I was mixing with Harvey. There's a couple funny things, but I was mixing with Harvey. We went to mix, and I said to Harvey, you know, would you be interested? Now, this is very unlike me to be this assertive. So I say, Harvey, would you do the next album? Would you produce? Because he's like a producer. Would you produce the album? And he kind of looks at me out the side of his eye and he goes, well, let's see how this one does. So I go home to my wife and I'm like, Louise, Harvey says that he maybe will produce the next one. And she looks at me and she goes, you think you're going to do another one after the cost of this one?
Oh,
So I went back to Harvey and I said, you got to start working on Louise, man. You got to like work on her for the next one, you know? So
man,
that's the long and short. So yeah, like, so we went up to New Jersey. I stayed in the hotel room, you know, overnight. We did 2 days. Those cats, Harvey and Billy were in for a day. Harvey has a thing where he doesn't like to do a lot of takes. So it's like what you hear is what you get. So which was cool. A lot of people would go and overdub. And that's basically you're hearing us play live and in the moment, you know. And so that's what I dig about it. You wouldn't know that we didn't play, you know, we didn't run it a lot of times. And the sound is really, really good from what I understand. So we captured a moment.
The sound is amazing, Skip. The performances are just incredible, honestly. And like you guys start, like Billy does a drum solo in the first song. I mean, it's so like, I just love the way that the album kicks off. The whole vibe. Honestly, it's been my soundtrack since I got it. I traveled west, so I took it over 2,000 miles with me. Driving on I-70 and I-15, and I love the record. I think your compositions are fantastic. I can't wait. You're talking about another one. I'm excited already, but
yeah,
I want to let people know where they can hear this one. So why don't we just start with that? I know you have a website cooked up and all that. So what's going on with that?
So if you want to physically buy the CD, you can go to my Bandcamp. I have Bandcamp. It's pretty easy to find. And then also, I think it's available through Amazon. And then a lot of people, it's unbeknownst to me, a switch has happened in the last, 10 years. So streaming is a big deal. And it's basically on every platform you can stream it. So an interesting thing for me is to like deal with like the, what streaming is, how to draw people into streaming. That switch over is pretty amazing. So I'm pretty involved even at my advanced age on trying to figure out how to do social media, which is not comfortable for me. Like I don't like, going, talking too much. From my generation in a way, it's like the talking about what you had for breakfast is a little weird to me. But, if that creates a fan base, like I had granola, still, you know what I'm saying? So I'm still learning, how to reach the people, but I find streaming and Spotify. I know we critique Spotify for the pay, but I find it really interesting how to do that type of thing at this point. So I every night I look at who's looked at the Spotify, who's listening. How do I motivate people? The hardest thing I think now for me is if, like you said, you're saying I really dig the album. I think it's getting people to listen. People are busy. Listening to an hour of music is a lot of time to hear how it unfolds, how the orders were done. What the order of the people, what the vibe of the album is. But, it's when people get to listening, I get really, really good vibes about it. So that's the exciting thing. It's just, just getting them to unwrap the CD may be the first thing and put it in the thing or go to Spotify to drive them to Spotify. So the reviews, everything about it has gone better than I expected. The reviews are really great. One of the goals that Jack wanted is to, I'm happy to be in Baltimore. I'm happy with my life, but he's like, people want to hear you outside of Baltimore. We got to get you out of Baltimore and drive people to the music because these are the level of people that you need to be playing with. This is who I am at. And he was right in a lot of ways. My inner child did not think he was right. My inner child was screaming the whole way to the gig, You know, it's like 10 o'clock or 11 o'clock in your morning, and you're like looking up at Harvey and Billy playing, and you're going, oh shit, this is happening now, man. You know, that's all on the line, man. I better put it out. You go for it because you don't have any choice, you know?
Yeah.
So you're like faced with, you know, and now I realize, well, what's the worst thing? Nobody ever hears the gig. You know, you put it in a box and hide it under the dirt, you know, you bury it and never hear it, you know. But so, yeah, so it's been interesting to play with that level. And my sister Laura said, I will never allow you to play again with people that aren't of that level, man, because your music is worthy of being played by great people. You know, that's your family and everything, but like it's hard to go, man, I want to be around the best musicians, and that may be getting out of my comfort zone of my little house in Baltimore with my garden and my dog and going to New Jersey for 4 days, you know?
Yeah.
And driving up the New Jersey Turnpike, which is boring to me. That's the most boring drive.
That sounds like advice Laura would give. And also it's interesting, skipping the liner notes to the second tune, Harvey Livingston Seagull, you reference a self-help book that you borrowed from Laura.
Yeah.
As sort of an inspiration. Why don't you, that's a great, there's so many great tunes on this. It's hard to even like pick one, but let's start with that track.
So that tune was the book is called Jonathan Livingston Seagull. And so that was a self-help book. And I just remember being a kid at the beach in Rehoboth Beach. And she was like that kind of like, you know, I would say the more 60s influence older sibling when that thing came out. And and so she had this self-help book. And I remember reading it as a kid and just being, what the heck is this thing about? You know? And so the way for me that the melody sort of like sounds like a bird in flight. So I always sort of sometimes name tunes with sort of a comical edge to it. And I thought I would reference that self-help book, you know. And then after I had finished the recording, I went back and read, just as a kick, to read the actual Jonathan Livingston Seagull. And it's pretty interesting. It's kind of like a Zen approach to living, and flying's like a metaphor, you know, for living. And so it sort of had a deeper meaning as an adult for me. And so that was, you know, that was kind of fun. And then in the mixing session, it was really funny. I was leaning over to the engineer and I said, "Hey man, are we mixing, you know, Harvey Livingston Seagull next?" So Harvey was sitting next to me, and so I renamed it and did a little homage to Harvey in the title of it. But yeah, I mean, it's like, you know, like in terms of like, you know, to me, being a musician is a spiritual way of life. It's the only approach I know to like how I can live, you know? So it's like, and it's like you're trying constantly over my life to get better. I mean, it's like all this stuff of reviews that we're talking about. I mean, it's really nice to get a good review and have people acknowledge this thing that you've been tinkering away in ground zero. But like, you know, it's really about how can I be a better musician over my life? That's the way I was when I was 10. That's the way I am now. What can I do to get more involvement in music and grow into the person that I'm supposed to be? And one, like, you know, in the book, one of the things is that it's like, you know, he learns how to do certain thing flying, and then he gets to a next spiritual level, and then it's like seeking the next level. It's a never ending pathway. All the great musicians that I'm into are like wanting to get to this next level, whatever it is. That's why I'm supposed to want to do the recording to get gigs, right? It's about gigs, man. That's like gigs. Well, for me, it was like, what can I learn by doing this? You know, what can I do to get to the gigs and all that take care of themselves?
Yeah.
You know, if I pay attention to my artistry, you know, it's like I say to my wife, you know, like not to compare myself, but like, you know, to like a great painter, you know, like you know, you if you're Picasso's got to paint, you know. And so it's like you just do the art, you know. And I'm sure other cats are like, that's crazy But to me, it's like the only thing to do is like pay attention to the music, and the rest of it takes care of itself. But, you know, it's like, you know, I should have done a lot of things when I was 20, but I didn't, you know. I waited until I was older to do this recording or get involved. To me, having the opportunity to record is a luxury to do on this level, to do it at this level. And by the way, I have to acknowledge that I was helped by a grant from Pathways to Jazz to do this recording, to document. The goal of that is to document your career, but also to use it as a promotional vehicle. And I would suggest any jazz musician of any age to try. They just closed off the competition for this year, but next year to like apply for that thing, because it helps young players and players of my level, which is really unusual, to do this thing, you know, to have the experience, to maybe hire people that you wouldn't normally play with, or to do promotion that you wouldn't normally do. And so that helped me do it. And then it was gratifying to go, hey, I went through the rounds. There were 2 rounds. I went through the round where they screened people with a letter of intent and then made it to the next line. You know, each little thing says to me, I'm okay, man. I'm gonna make it someday. This kid's okay, you know. And so like that little acknowledgement was cool to me. But like, I want, as part of the thing is to tell people about the thing, but I want people to try for these things, because it's tough to do the recording process and the promotional process that I've done to get the, you know, the promotional thing happening at this particular level that I'm trying to work at. You know what I'm saying? So, you know, hopefully people will hear that and apply for the next round. That'll be the 2020. I think it's 2024 will be the one that they'll do in about May 1st of next year. So you have to have your letter of intent, and you got to get up early in the morning to get that, because that thing filled within about an hour of being open. Filing the 40 people were all that made it through that round. So that was cool. You just have to have your thing together and do that. Cool.
Cool. Yeah, we really appreciate
like a true
it.
artist. Truly. I mean, I love what Skip said about art being something that you can't ignore, avoid, or run from. You have to express it. And what a beautiful answer, Skip. So true. I mean, it is all about the art at the end of the day, not the promotion, not the blood, sweat, and tears. It's the end result and the joy you had making it. Just a beautiful, beautiful CD. We really do love the new CD, Skip. So real happy for you.
Thank you.
It's great. It's what Skip. You know, on the first time when you were on the show, you brought your guitar along, and it's great that you didn't this time. But maybe next time we could do that again, because I mean, you already are really, you know, your enthusiasm is infectious, and we love that on the spin. And I know people are really digging the show right now. We've got a lot of people viewing in. So thank you guys so much for tuning in to hang out with us and Skip. And, but yeah, it's inspirational for, you know, we're all, Nikki and myself and Vinny are just a couple years younger than you. But yeah, we're still on our musical path. It's a rock and roll path. And, you know, it's funny to hear about grants and stuff. Could you guys imagine in rock and roll world and like getting up early to do something like that? That would never exist.
Hey, I do that.
Well, Nikki, yeah, because I mean, you're a gal on the go though. Like you're doing a lot of work for your band, a lot of the promotional stuff and getting the booking and all that. So you've got a lot going on with that as well.
Oh, I'm busy. But I was thinking about what Skip was saying about how, you know, you've got to make the music, and you're making the music to get the gigs. And I loved what you said, Skip, about the gigs will come. You know, because that's something that I'm if you ask these guys, I'm new to the game. So I'm kind of learning the ropes. And what I'm learning is that I need to take a breath. My guys in my band are always telling me, it's okay, relax, calm down. You know, things are going to happen as they're supposed to happen. And I like hearing that from you, especially you've got some experience under your belt. I don't think you're that much older than we are really, but you do have the experience, and it's nice to hear that. It makes me
Well,
feel better.
for me, like I worked in jazz, it's what's called a sideman. And so like, like at first when you get out of school or, you become a musician, it's like, oh, I have a gig, blah, 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 blah. I have a gig this day. I have a gig this day. But it's like, I've played every kind of gig there is, and not every gig is great. Even though we're telling our peers, when we're, 30 or 25 or 50 or whatever, I've got this gig. So, I mean, I think the point of doing good, doing this, okay, you want to get the best gigs you can, so I was what was called a sideman, and I dig being a sideman. I dig being given a task to do and being supportive of whatever's going on. It's like a thing, and being a leader was never like a big deal to me. But it gets to a point, and it's good that you're leading your band, because it gets to a point where you have to do that leader thing. And so, this is the first
I'm
time
learning that.
I've ever been like a leader, and it's like there's a lot of worries in that, like
it's a thankless job.
It's like you have a contract for an 11 o'clock sound check in DC, and you're praying that people are going to make it to the 11 o'clock sound check on time, and I'm used to not worrying about that thing, and avoided it like the plague, because I can just roll on a gig and play whatever I want, just put the chart in front of me of what you want, and I'm going to read down the chart and play the gig, and I'm going to go home. But then you say, I can't do my musical vision when I'm in that role, and I have at my age something to say, I think.
Yeah, you do.
And so, back to the recording session, when I talked to Harvey S. and Billy Drummond and Anthony Pochetti, I learned a valuable thing, because what they kept saying to me, to a man, was, tell me what you need for your vision to happen. Now that was like, what the heck? I don't know what my vision is yet. You're supposed to, and these guys have so much experience. Why am I telling them what the vision is? And so that was pretty intense experience, but you realize, I have a vision, but I have to be comfortable in that role of leading the gig. And it's like, you already sound better at leading than me. I mean, just the way you talk about it. I mean, it's just, to me, it's like a really tough position, because it's like a lot of it's like your personality type. Now, like there was a dude in DC named Danny Gatton that I studied with. I don't know if you know who Danny Gatton is, but go scope him out. When I was a young man, I studied with him when I was like 18 or 19. And he said, I'll give you lessons, but you can't become a professional musician, and of course, all he did was walk a bass line on an A chord, and like a jazz bass line. And it was like, forget it. I'm dropping out of science school, next chance I get. So, like I lost my train of thought, but like, it's like, I lost, being a leader.
Yeah.
So like, I mean, like I do not like being the cat that's leading the gig. I like being on the gig and like helping out and everything.
Yeah.
And so like, knowing when Harvey said, like I'm here to do your vision, he taught me a lesson on what being a pro is.
Yeah.
And Billy Drummond and Anthony Pochetti, the piano player, they were all like, tell me what to do. It's a really uncomfortable place, but you have to be like, I have something to say, like back again, I have something to say and I got to get it done. And then that was the experience of doing that. There was a lot of things I told them that I think I did wrong,
Sure.
And, and then it's like, I acknowledge that I didn't do some things right. You go back the next time, try again and do better. If you lose the gig, that's okay too.
Yeah.
If you're not going to get every gig you go out for, but the ones you do, that's one more thing being a leader. That's one more thing about being a musician. But I was saying like my person. I have more of Danny Gatton's personality. He just wanted to sit back there and play guitar, man.
Yeah.
He did not want to be like doing anything wild on a gig. It was like pay attention to the guitar playing, but hey, we're in a world of Taylor Swift now, you know?
Yes.
And so, you know, that may be a thing too, you know? But, you know, it's like back to, you know, when you play the kind of music that I play, you know, you're only dealing with 3% of the record buying public. If that. I mean, that was probably when my wife was working in a record store. My wife probably gave me those numbers when she was working in a record store in the 90s. It's probably closer to 1%.
Yeah.
You know, but it's like they're jazz people in Baltimore. They're dedicated to the art form. So you're playing a tradition that you're dedicating your life to the tradition.
Yeah.
And so, you know, like, you know, there's a famous thing about like Sonny Rollins where he sat on a bridge. He would drop out of music periodically and sit on the Brooklyn Bridge or whatever and practice at night. And he wasn't working for periods of time. And Danny Gatton wasn't working for periods of time. He was hustling cars, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, you know, Philip Glass worked as a taxi cab driver, you know. It's like there's a lot of ways to practice your art. You know, it's keeping in the game and making music part of your everyday life. You know, it's like getting up and wanting to do something musical every day. And then part of that thing may be making calls to try to get a gig.
Yeah.
And then if you get one gig, you might get another, and it might be 6 months from now, but you were a leader that time. So if maybe you do 6 gigs a year as a leader, that's cool.
Yeah.
Because I can go on the gig and call my music and say, let's see how this guy does on this chart. You know?
It's an interesting point you bring up about like risk taking too, about how you have to put yourself out there, and you know, there's some inherent risks, you know, that I've never really had to take, being a school teacher and whatnot. But now with music, especially playing as not a young but a new musician, so I'm having to. I'm weighing the scales a lot. You know, do I say this now? I don't really like how this sounds, or should I interject my opinion? I mean, I play, but I don't really play. You know, are they going to respect this? So you were kind of saying that earlier. And then, like trying to navigate that whole thing about gigs. And when you say getting gigs, you mean like in the long term, because I'm assuming jazz musicians kind of get a gig maybe at a certain venue and then you're ongoing. Not so much in my genre, you know, it's one and done. But trying to get back in that club again, I guess, is kind of the same thing.
Yeah.
Right. It's like, well, we're taking every kind of gig you can get. We freelance a lot. It's like a different thing where you're with a set band. You know, like your gun for hire. I might be doing a wedding one day where they're wanting jazz, might play solo guitar, anything. You're just scrapping the idea of working with a set band. You have a group of people that you know, and then, you know, I say the only way you get a new gig is if a dude leaves town or they die. Then they need a guitar player because nobody's there to fill the thing. You're the third player on the call list. And so, like, you know, I might get a call, and if I don't return the call in 24 hours, you don't get called again. So, you know, there's just, you're fighting, because I live in a town where the greatest jazz military bands, you know, the real, you know, studio musicians of today are in the Jazz Ambassadors, the Navy Commodores, you know, and all these military bands that are associated with the area that I live. You got a lot of great guitar players within 100 miles of me. You know, a lot of great musicians of every kind of stripe working around here. So, you know, you're fighting to get your gigs, and you might not, you know, be able to go out and get the kind of gig you want. But I've narrowed it down. I went on every kind of gig there was, and it's like, I'll go on any kind of jazz gig, but I won't do blues, or, you know, I'm pretty narrow on my focus, which, you know, limits you. So you may be at home on a Friday night. You're trying to get a good enough reputation in what I do to get a call if there's somebody needs somebody down their list, I think is what it is. But, you know, like I'm more even interested in just doing my own music at this point, you know? Yeah. So it's like, I'm not even worried about freelancing as much. And here's a thing I'll tell you as a beginner, you know, I mean, I went to music school, saying that you're starting your band. I went to music school, and you learn a really negative attitude from music school a lot of times about where you are in the world. You know, it's like where I went to North Texas, you know, it's the biggest jazz music school in the world, but Denton, Texas, for me, is the darkest place in the universe for trying to learn how to do music, because it's like such negative energy. You know, for me, I didn't have musical parents or whatever. So I had to learn, you know, like that, like, you know, criticism's brutal. You know, when on the last album, this one guy did this one review that just like really, he was criticizing the title of the tune. I mean, it was like so negative. I didn't understand what it was. But, you know, but it's hard to put yourself out there and be rejected for something you sit in your house. You're so into it. You want to like make music. You're proud of what you're doing. It's hard to be told, you know, we didn't like the title that you put on the tune or the title of the band. He didn't like the name of the band either. It was like, what, you know, I'm just wanting to like make music and put it out there. And that's cool to be, you know, his job is to critique. So it's really hard to put yourself out here and not, again, back to the inner child, let that person inside you, man, that's put all that stuff into it. It's really hard, but there's a lot of good that can come that for me, I'm risk adverse too, you know? I mean, my grandmother, my, you know, they were born in the Depression, my grandmother. And so like that influences my risk aversion in my inner child. Like, you know, just like, you know, like they weren't risk takers like my father. And there is a risk for putting yourself out there, for trying to get a gig, trying to get criticism. And I'm just at the learning end of dealing with the criticism on a professional level, but it's hard to let it drip off your back like water.
So hard.
It's so hard because you loved what you did. You thought it was
your enthusiasm is, you think my enthusiasm is this high. I can't believe anyone could criticize this. I'm my heart. It's everything. You know, you put yourself out there. It's really intimate in a way. And then somebody says something negative. It busts you.
Well,
I know.
You thought it was meaningful, and you want to share what you think is meaningful about music or the world or whatever you're trying to do. I don't have words in my music, right? I have the linear notes, can tell you a little bit about it, but I listen to these people just like you listen to these people, and they make something happen in your heart. Whether that's the Rolling Stones, you showed the Rolling Stones book. I remember listening to my sister's Rolling Stones. That's the grooviest thing. You know, whatever it was, the Who or whatever I was listening to as a kid on the radio, all that's what the album's about, really, is that we take this love of music. That little boy is not me. I'll tell you on the cover. You can show people the cover again. But that's the storyline of every one of the musicians I know, is that you are a person wanting to become a musician. What's taken me a long time to do this album. And it's about the things that you dig about being a musician. You lose those things. You lose it by going to music school, maybe. You know, a lot of people aren't in music that I went to music school with. You lose it just by the nature of life. You lose that passion for it.
Yeah.
And that's the thing that sustains me as a human being. And it sustains the guys I was definitely playing with. I can tell you that. Yeah. I mean, nobody sets out to be a jazz musician and understands what the meaning of that is exactly. And so you have a passion for, you know, you heard Pat Metheny's behind me. A girlfriend of mine drew that when I was 16 years old. You remember the first Miles Davis, Mike Stern, seeing Mike Stern. I had the opportunity to like sit down and jam with Mike Stern last year. And I said, Mike, Warner Theater, 1981, your first show back on the road. I was there. And he looked at me like, who cares? That was one of many shows. I said to him, dude, you went up and down the guitar linearly in every position. That's like amazing, dude. You know the effect you made me be a guitar player, like, and be able to do that. He's like, well, that's cool. You know, it's like nothing for him. Those experiences that we have, we take through life.
Yeah.
And and so when someone's like, I don't like your music, man, you know, that's really hard to deal with. That's at any age, just to learn to play the guitar badly is a really freaking hard thing to do.
It's true.
Just to be a bad guitar player is hard as shit in my mind. When I teach people, I'm like,
True.
oh my, it's like, you know what I'm saying? Being any kind of musician and doing any kind of music is hard.
It's tough.
You know, so it's like, it's not like I'm sitting at home going, the Rolling Stones, I used to like them, but they suck now. You know, it's like, or the Allman Brothers or whatever I listen to, you know, my Elvis Costello and stuff that when I was in high school and poo-pooed, you know, like Elvis Costello, my girlfriends are playing that to me and I'm like, oh, Elvis Costello, it doesn't have lead guitar in there. Why do we want to know that? Why do I need to know that? He's not playing like, you know, Dickie Betts, man. I don't get it, you know, but like now I'm like, wow, Elvis Costello, the Beatles, you know, the Beatles were so passe to me. You know, it was like they were like broken up. Why are we listening to the Beatles when I'm younger? Now it's like, whoa, man, I dig the Beatles. You know, it's like we have the ability to get in and embrace all forms of music, you know, whether it's classical or whatever. I'm into it. You know what I'm saying? And it's like those are the things that are important. So back to when you put yourself out there, man, people don't, you know, they're just it doesn't move them because they might not have a frame of reference to understand what you're doing. You know, it's like if you're dealing with 1% of the record buying public that are influenced by jazz, you know, then, you know, but I said to Harvey, maybe people, this is the type of music that when people are getting drilled at the endodontist, getting their root canal, maybe I can get on a playlist at the dentist because I think this is pretty mellow music, man.
It's
chill.
know,
maybe it'll be functional, you know.
It's chill music.
That's cool.
Yeah.
To me, the hardest part and the thing that I was most impressed with Becoming is I'm as guilty as anybody else. I'm as guilty as any other music fan. I'm an instant coffee guy. I hit my Spotify. I listen for a couple minutes. I go, okay, what's next? I got to tell you, Skip, I listened to it start to finish. It drew me in. And I really do think that if people take the time to look you up on the various music sites that you're on out there, and I know there's many, including Bandcamp, they are going to listen all the way through and they're going to thoroughly enjoy it for the piece that it is.
It's interesting, you know, not to toot my own horn, but the reviews from even the like people that are the main reviewers for jazz are saying, you know, like a dude from, you know, early on, we got a radio guy in Chicago going like, this is like, I opened this up and I wasn't expecting much. And I'm paraphrasing, but it was like, this is like a total surprise.
Yeah.
You know, and he was programming like 6 times a week. It started getting played in Chicago. So it taught me that it was like getting people to peel, but they get it without the cover, you know, sealed, you know, they take off the plastic, you know what I'm saying? Because they can't be bothered with that. But like, basically it's like you're saying, I mean, I really think that people, you know, my student had it on in his house and the woman's with his wife and goes, what is this, man? Where can I get it?
Yeah.
You know, and that tells me, you know, you're like saying a thing to me that's very true. And it's like it may be like, you know, it's genre specific, you know, it's like maybe it's like jazz doesn't, you know, appeal to someone, you know, but even, you know, my test for how the music is going on Mother's Day will say this.
Yeah.
My mother she did not grow up I did not grow up with a mother that was like embracing even any of it, you know, but she didn't really understand. And she would try to early on communicate with me. And I remember one time she said, what do you think of Diane Shore, you know, or something? And I like probably poo-pooed it wasn't hip enough jazz, which was a mistake on my part. But over time, she's kind of gotten, you know, as she's retired, she has more time to listen and she studies and she might read a little bit. And when you like give it to her, you know, she is my mother, but she said, you know, I can really relate to this.
Yeah.
You know, that's like the test, you know, like my sister Laura likes the Dead, but doesn't really like jazz. She likes it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think that was the idea of like, look, I grew up in I'll tell you, I was born in 65. So I'm growing up during the rock era. And I think we were hearing music on the radio. And I don't want to write music from the 1940s.
Yeah.
Now, I can write that, but they become, you know, hopefully if I get a sync deal, they can have my music that sounds like the 1940s. But like, you know, you're combing through what is really you, what is going to express you, you know, it's like I'm combing through like 40 charts to get down to the 8. you know, and there's more there. So you're like narrowing it down. What is again the vision? And so it's like, you know, when the people that don't normally like jazz go to you, hey man, your music is appealing to me. Well, they were living a lot of times in the same era I was.
Yeah.
They can hear the influences. You know, I grew up playing Santana. You know, they can hear that I like Latin music, that I like Europa is a cool tune. You know, they can hear the Allman Brothers in there. They can hear, but they also can be exposed to like, who's Kenny Wheeler? Well, Kenny Wheeler's like this guy on the ECM label that played trumpet that wrote really beautiful music, that I want you to get into Kenny Wheeler.
Yeah.
You know, I want you to feel what I felt with that thing. Can you share this thing of feeling with me? You know, it's like being available. There's no words to it, which is a problematic, I know. But can you get inside my thing that I'm interested in? Because I'm sharing something that a lot of times, you know, the music, we had this feeling when we heard it. You know, I mean, you guys can tell me who people, you know, make that heart go. You know, I mean, and so you take those things through your life, you know. And so that's why I think my sister Laura can dig it, because it's got like the one tune that I wrote for my wife has got that strummy acoustic guitar.
Yeah, for Lulu, wherever you are.
Yeah, I mean, and they didn't want me to put that strummy acoustic guitar on there, but it made me think of like the kind of pounding thing that I heard that really got me into some music that I heard that on. So you're like going, you know, you have this frame of reference, and it's like getting that person in there. I'm still trying to figure out what it is. You know, what gets people into the music, you know, reaching out to Vinny and reaching out to you and Nikki, you know, like, how do I get you in my world? You know, I mean, it's like, I mean, I think you're trying to figure that out, and you might never do it, you know, and you can reach the people, but you're not going to see me in a skimpy outfit. So, you know, I got a problem there. I mean, I'm getting grayer, you know, who is my audience and how I can get them, man, is really confusing to me, you know.
It was bad enough when we had Vinny and I on the year-ending show, us in the hot tub. I don't think we could do a bunch of us, but in that realm. But I want to just quickly, Skip, first of all, we're enjoying having you on so much. Like,
thank you.
There's not enough time. And again, I want to do a breakdown show with you with your guitar sometime, maybe a Sunday spin shoot, you know, like a little spin-off. But want to give shout outs to Son of Snake, Bob Merle, Tony Russo, people that are enjoying the show, people that are chiming in. I've been putting up some of the comments and stuff, and they've just been having a really good time with us. So it means a lot. And also just want to say, been playing your record too, Skip, in the record store. So maybe we could get a couple copies for What's Left Records and sell them in there. I know Sean Ostro, one of the co-owners of the store, is a big jazz freak. So I turned him on to your music. Yeah, Skip, I was curious. Have you heard of these kids, Dami and JD Beck? They're the young jazz kids, but they're on Blue Note. I'd be curious the next time we chat if you could check them out. It's Domi. She's a keyboard player. She's got to be a virtuoso. And then the drummer is JD Beck, but they're a duo. Again, they're on Blue Note. She's like 22, he's like 18. They're insane, and they're finding a lot of it's jazz, but they're also collaborating with folks like Anderson .Paak, Mac DeMarco. So they're using some other soul and R&B. Snoop Dogg's on the album, so some hip hop. I'd be really curious, Skip. Again, it's the other end of the spectrum as far as what young people are doing. But yeah, it's just they're really cool. And she's an amazing keyboard player. I mean, I can hear her channeling like Hancock and a bunch. Like she's the real deal. So I'd be curious. So and you as well.
We have some kids in Baltimore. We have like the School for the Arts here in Peabody. And I do a lot of work as a clinician, you know, and I think it's pretty amazing. You know, I don't think I really learned to play until I was like, you know, I'll joke and say like 40, but, you know, like I didn't become my mature self. I think it was around 30. where I could really play the thing that I was trying to like do from the beginning. You know, I could understand Wes, I could play like it, and I could transcribe it, and I knew all the things about the musicians, you know, around 30. But I see a lot of really, really young people with a lot together pretty early now.
It's insane.
And they're training them a lot better in the business side of things. You know, like I just had when I was in music school, and I have 2 degrees in music, an undergraduate and a graduate degree, they didn't talk about music business at all. I mean, it's like I'm still behind the curve of that thing. I mean, when young people are putting out albums talking about Spotify and how you get the little social media thing, and they put out the little here and now thing, and people are, getting on their Spotify before the thing even comes out. You know, I mean, they're just really, really well trained a lot of times out of college on the business end of it.
Yeah.
But they also are trained really, really well. It might be from YouTube, you know, that you can go on and just see all sorts of jazz education. Yeah, there's a lot on there. You know, we were going to our rock guitar guy down the street and learning, you know, a major scale 3,000 times over the same scale again and again, you know. I mean, it's like, you know, where he was showing us a Rolling Stones tune. It took 6 months to learn Brown Sugar, you know. So it's like a different world of the access is part of what it is to me.
We should have an actual show, Glenn, Vinny, about metadata, Spotify, Apple.
Yeah.
That's like, I am spending way too much time, but I'm learning all about that right now. And marketing. I think that's kind of what you're really referring to is the marketing, because there's we could do a whole show on this about like how you do that. It's a bit of a trick.
Well, my friend Jack Frisch, the producer of the album, and who was helping with the first album, he really kicked my ass over the last couple years. Like, you do not have a New York level EPK. Get your shit together. And I'll be like, who cares about that shit? I'm getting gigs, man. You know, it's like I'm working. Why do I, you know, it's like that's all modern, man. I don't, you know, why do I need to modernize? Why do I need to care about like, you know, an EPK? But I studied my butt off, and people have helped me if you ask for help. You know, it's like I can still learn. I don't know things, but it's like, you know, they did not tell us about what an EPK is. At Peabody, where my wife teaches in the preparatory division, you know, they're telling people how to do EPKs. They're training them in that stuff out of the get-go.
Yeah.
And it's not the kids there, even though it's a classical music school, some of the classical people are learning to improvise now. Right. They're in improv class. It's multi faceted, you know, every kind of business, music, every kind of thing, because you got to be open to making a living, is what I think. That's what I can garner from seeing what is happening there, which is a great thing. Because man, the hardest part of being a young person is moving out of your parents' house and like getting that rent taken care of for the first 5 years, let alone learning how to get a house.
Yeah.
You know, I was very fortunate to get an environment to where I was able to do the things I wanted to do. You know, I'm a homeowner. I'm a normal person. We're not like, you know, in the you know, I think my mother, you know, when you're growing up, it's like you're going to be like in an alley. There's going to be drugs involved. You know, it's going to be a really, really nasty life. You know, why do we want our kids to be that? You know, and they were probably right, but we're like homeowners. We're business people. Yeah. We're teaching. We have, as my instructor, Greg Hotz said, you got to have your hands in a lot of pots, and that's the way I've figured it out. So the hardest period of time is like those years when you're getting out. I painted houses for 3 years. You know, I did other things, you know, to get it together. And then gradually you move to where you're, you know, making a living teaching. And I transcribed blues guitar for a living for a bunch of years. You know, I did other things. But it was like a shell shocking, you know, you're living with 3 guys in a rundown house somewhere in Baltimore is where I was, you know, and I'm having my wife come to that place, and she's going, yeah, but I really want to get married. you know, and you're like, well, how are we going to do that? You know what I'm saying? So it's like, you know, it's great that they're training people in the music. So you got to get training in music. You got to get trained in the business. And, you know, I'm being really open with you guys because it's about me, but I'm actually a really shy person that has learned to talk to people about my music and is still learning. You got to learn to get along with other people. You have to have social skills.
That's the truth.
You know, you're learning the skill sets as you go. You know, and it was like they were just like, you know, you get in jazz music school and they're like, you know, play this mode. You know, I mean, do this musical thing. You don't. When I'm in school, they didn't do any of that stuff. They didn't tell you how to do an EPK. They didn't tell you how to do social media. They didn't. You know, it was a different world. And my friends, I have a close friend named Greg Tompkins that I played with for years. We get on the phone, or he'll call me later and say, "Yeah, that stuff you said about social media, blah 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 blah." You know. We're talking about, he was telling me to get on Facebook for like 8 years. You really need to get on Facebook, man. And I'm like, I don't want to talk about what eggs and bacon I ate for this morning and, where I'm going for dinner and, you know, but I'm still learning. I can't figure out Instagram, Twitter. I don't get it all, you know, I know what I know, you know.
Yeah.
And it's like, you know.
And you have a website too that people can go to. And that's what's really important for all the artists is to have some kind of resource, a Bandcamp page, a website, Facebook, all that. You don't have to have them all, I don't think. But you just want to, the ones that you do have, you just want to make them right. And Nikki, I love your idea about breaking some of this down. Maybe we could get Jack for that too. So
yeah, let's do it. Let's make that a show one night because
you get like a bio. You need a bio when you're young, writing a decent bio.
All the things you have to have and
nowadays you need video. You need good video. How do you get it? Well, just in my town,
you have to have shorts.
My place in town, we have a place named Andy Music that he's very supportive of the arts, and they have a video production facility. When you do a gig, you get a video.
That's awesome.
So sometimes, you know, you learn that you take a gig for some other reason than the pay. If you can get like a good video for your band to enrich your EPK, that's a reason to take a gig. But I need a psychic bank reason to take a gig where I'm not getting paid in dollars, right?
Yeah.
So you got to logic it out. And Nikki, in our town, back to what you were saying, there's a Baltimore Office of Promotion and Arts and the Maryland Arts Council. For any kind of music where we live, there's an artist grant. So you got to be competitive. You got to be willing to write and put in the time. But last year I did an organ tribute to Pat Martino, the guitarist who had died. And that was through the Baltimore Office of Arts and Promotion. And I wrote like a thing about it. And so that's another thing where I got outside of my comfort zone and was able to get like help in doing this thing. The outcome is that I got video from it. And so to you were saying like about grants in your program. I don't know where you live, but the grants can be like there in Maryland State Arts Council. There's grants for like just what's called a creativity grant, and it can be used for anything. Now I haven't gotten that grant. Maybe I would, but like in your community, it's siphoning down from the NAA in a way. So I would suggest, you know, I don't think I don't think there should be a bias to what your art is, you know, and so maybe you look into that, and so that facilitates, you know, doing the things that are like, you know, part of doing a decent EPK, you know. I mean, it's like I've just noticed that when I talk to people and you have that thing that say, you know, why do I want to put my thing on the radio? Well, if your album charts like mine did, people take notice of that from what I gather, and that means something to them about what I call the jazz industrial complex. And so that's part of my EPK. That's part of my history is Jack's argument. Now he's saying, now go get a gig with it. Now it's a different thing. But it is, as much as I don't want the business end of it, there is a lot of people trying to do what I'm trying to do. So I think you're trying to get some notice that you have something to give, and that you can put audiences in the butts in the seats, that people, that you're enough of a draw. And
Sure.
so my attitude is, I'm at the beginning stages of being a leader, and that I have like a 2 to 5 year horizon with this CD. Right. And I have name recognition that in 2 years I'll need to go back and maybe do another album to get the name recognition. And I'm building, and dudes that have 4 CDs that are in my comparable category on Spotify, they're getting 1,000 listens a week or a month. And it's like, I'm getting like 50, it's down to 17. Well, what can I do? The thing for me that I try, instead of like dealing with the negative energy, I try to make it fun. Yeah. I try to make it like play. How can I make this move the dial? What can I do to do the thing that like eventually something will happen? But it's like going up a huge mountain. You know, it's like, this is like, it's like tiny little mountain. And it's like you're knocking the mountain back a little bit, you know? Yeah. But the idea that like, you know, something major, I mean, we all want something major to happen to where, you know, they're going to be knocking at my door, throwing me a gig at the best place in town, which is like downtown from here. You know, it's like, I have to work to get that. You know?
It's a weird deal, because even when you start to get that recognition on some of these streaming systems, I mean, we have one song up there that's got 40,000 listens. And
well, that's like 40,000 more than me. You know?
We just got our first royalty check, which you wouldn't be impressed. But anyway, it doesn't always equate to those gigs. You know, it's kind of a weird deal. Because I thought, as I watched these numbers grow, I was, you know, I'm calling the guys. Oh my God, you guys get on here. Look. And it doesn't really equate to that. It's helped for sure, because people you get a little bit of conversation going, but it doesn't always equate to it. So it's another show. We should have a show on that.
So I mean, my friend Greg that I was speaking of, you know, we've been friends since we were in our 20s. He goes, it's about building relationships.
Yes.
And that makes, like, you know, it's like you can't get frustrated that the first time you do something doesn't happen. It's like, you know, there's so many people, you need like time with FaceTime or phone time with people. And it's like when you're contacting someone about a gig, you may be planting a seed for like 3 years from now.
Thank you.
Because they've got their thing booked, their calendars booked up for years in advance a lot of times, or months in advance. So it's really hard for me not to take it personally. Like, you know, I'm good, man. It's like, you know, but like, it's like, if you don't have a relationship with the person, I don't get mad about the rejection. It's like, and it's like, I feel bad, you know, I'm like, oh man, I really wanted that gig. Why isn't he? Even people I know and have relationships, you know, they're getting 100 emails a day trying to book that gig.
Yes. Some guy told me, one of the club owners here in San Diego, we have 3 really active punk clubs, and we have like a handful of ones that'll do shows every once in a while. And one of my guys told me that he gets somewhere upwards of about 25 to 30 solicitations on social media, DM in the background, a day. And he just keeping up with that, you know, and like you said, the calendars are booked. He doesn't know people. They're random. He doesn't have the time to go looking at their page and how many people or how many listens. Or so you're right. You're building relationships.
And it's like, if you have one success, that may be enough. You know, it's that one thing can be a second thing. But I'm like a tortoise, you know, I'm not in any big hurry ever. I've never been in a big hurry. Good. You know, but like, it's cool. It's cool. You know, it sounds like you're in a good place, you know, 40,000 listens, you know, I mean, you know, I can only hope to do that. I have a friend from high school named Michael Whalen that writes like scores and all this stuff. And he has like, you know, this one tune with 3.82 million listens or something like that. I mean, he's a really well-known composer. And he was like, you know, I can help you so much with your career. And I'm like, oh man, I don't want to like ask for the help.
You sound like my bandmates.
Yeah, but it's like, I actually, you know, like, it's like, there's so much to learn. My wife says, you really need to reach out to Michael, you know, but it's like, you know, it's like I'm still figuring it out, man.
That's awesome.
I mean, it's like just after you do an album like this, you want it to do so well, or when you record or you do anything, and it's hard to put it into perspective that it does what it does, and that's okay. It's like you think it's gonna like kick down every door, and to be honest with you, it's just the beginning of the work, is what I figured out.
Super
the
true.
work for me is just starting, because I'm cool going into the studio, writing the music, and the easiest part to me is the recording part. And then the coming up with the dough to do the mixing gets harder, and the promotion, it all gets harder and harder money-wise. And then you get that thing out and you're so psyched, you're doing all the stuff and all the work of getting it ready to do. And I love all the administrative stuff, right? Unbeknownst to my mother, who didn't believe I was organized. But so you get to this point and the thing's out, and then the next month I'm like, yeah, things are going well. I have so much shit to do. I have so many things to do. And and it's like that's really hard to deal with, because you're like, what do I need to do? What thing do I need to do? And I'm like, get one gig. Get one gig. And then look, so that one gig, I put out 10 things to get one. That's like a decent ratio. 20-1 might be a better ratio. Man, when I was 35, man, I'd be like so bummed that like I was figuring I'd put that EP, I'd put the little package, we mail them out. I would be like that. Like, I'm so proud of this thing, man. It's like, where's the gig? Nothing would happen, right? And I mail it out with a form letter, I was like, it's like, no, how about going to the club and being a customer of the place and like talking to the owner and getting to know him as a human being is a better way than sending out like a package with a letter.
Yeah.
I just didn't, when I'm 20, I didn't even know how to put anything together. I just went and like any cassette, like I'm getting out of school, I take like a cassette, that was like, I probably stole from my sister, peel off the thing, just put it in anything, just here, I didn't know how to do anything, how to get a gig. I said to the guy, yeah, I'm like a best guitar player in town, probably. I'm 20. I went back to tell my friend Greg, and he said, "Are you effing crazy? You shouldn't have said that to the guy." I was like, I didn't know what to do. I was trying to hustle the gig,
Right.
But I was like, I didn't even hand him an EPK right. I didn't even do the thing where the cassette, where it was like printed up properly. That's how bad I was,
Good stuff. Good stuff. Wow, Skip, what a journey. So your mom already chimed in. She said she really enjoyed the show, Skip. And it was great to see her last weekend, hang out with Vinny. I missed Nikki's show, so I really bummed about that. But I'll be back, and we'll be back. And Skip, probably going to wrap it up now because you need to go call your mom. All right.
That's right. That's why I mentioned her, because it was Mother's Day.
Right. And my other two cohorts need to go relax and enjoy the rest of their weekend. And just before we do go, though, I want to let folks know that next week is my birthday. So we're going to do a show. We're going to hang out. I don't know. We'll have some people on. I'm sure we'll figure it out, you guys. The week after that, Son of Snake, who's been really watching the show and really helping to promote. So we're really excited to talk to Son of Snake. And then next month, Shane Smitty Smith. We got Danny Stewart, Lanny Garcia, and drum roll, no pun intended, Joey Ponchetti at the end of June. So really excited. We've been trying to get Joe. Skip, Joe is went to high school with us. He's a really good drummer, doing a lot of really good stuff in LA. So that shows you he's a session musician and doing a lot of stuff with bands as well. Cool. So Skip, you're awesome, man. Again, the album is titled Becoming. Say hi to Louise for me.
I will.
Another great musician in her own right. And we'd love to have you both on sometime. That would be amazing.
Cool.
She could put you in your place.
That's exactly right. She's probably mad I said like SHIT.
Oh,
She's
you're
thinking
good.
that's not British. She's British, and it's proper. You have to be
Right.
proper. Decorum is very important for the British.
Absolutely. So
So,
yeah,
Grandma, what do we got on the Groove Yard tomorrow?
a tribute to Anthony Davis, who's
Anthony
really
Davis.
a linchpin in the Anonymous Collective, founding member of Hipbone and Circles and Squares and all those cool bands. Yeah, really great guitar player. Excited to have him on. And I just want to say, man, people have been sticking around, Skip. So you did a really fantastic job today. A
Thanks.
riveting interview. Nikki, Vinny G, great job as always. Love you guys. And oh, I have a gig too. I know it's weird, it's crazy. I have a gig with the Glass Parade. It's going to be next Sunday. So maybe we'll do the show from the sound check. We're just playing 4 songs. It's a little benefit for a fallen musician, Mark DeLay. Was a big musician here in Colorado Springs. That'll be at Lulu's downstairs in Manitou. I've never played there. So maybe we'll try and do something from there. Skip, can't wait to have you on the show again. When are you going to
See
come
you
out
guys
to
later.
Colorado, man?
I don't know.
Okay, well, let's make it happen.
Okay, man.
All right. Thank
See
you
y'all
guys
later.
so much.
Nice
Happy
meeting
Father's
you,
Day.
Nikki.
What?
See you next week.
I said nice meeting you, Nikki, and it's nice seeing you guys
You
again.
too. You too. Take care, guys.
Great job, everyone. And be good, be kind, be yourself. We'll see you next week. Thank you, guys. Awesome.